Our mission here at New Haven Reads drives all the work that we do. It's at the heart of everything. I'm not going to read through it entirely, but you may hear our catchphrase that we are here to share the joy and power of reading with our students, with one another. So this drives all the work that we do. So if we move forward to the next slide, Natasha, we thought we would share some updates on where we are. So as of last week, we were able to serve 264 students in our program and providing them pretty close to 400 hours of tutoring, which is absolutely remarkable. This measure doesn't include our kindergarten class, which started last week too. So we had 7 students joining us last week in our kindergarten group. So that number will continue to grow and can continue to increase, as well as the tutoring hours. And truly, we could not do this without the support of amazing volunteers joining us. So also, some of you might be familiar with the score tests and the core test and the score tests. So the core test is administered to our students in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. You might see me or our assistant education director, Cassia, our kindergarten teacher and former assistant education director, Asia, joining your sessions if you are working with a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd grade student. Because what the core test allows us to do is measure baseline for students. So what things do they already know and what can we integrate into our programs with us? Unfortunately, when we transitioned to distance learning, we weren't able to administer the spring assessment to measure our students' growth. But over the summer, we did have the opportunity to work with just about a quarter of the students that had been tested in the fall. And what we found is 98% of the kids that were tested in the fall, in the summer, had either stayed at the same reading level or improved their independent reading level. Now, keeping in mind, they faced a ton of transition educationally. So we were able to support our kids in ways that they were able to maintain the growth that they had worked so hard towards. I also wanted to point out that close to a third of those students improved 2 or more grade levels from the fall to summer. And in fact, we had 4 kids from October, November into July that improved 3 or 4 grade levels in their reading. And that's a testament to the support that you were able to continue to provide for them in our programs. And the score test was new. I want to credit Mary, our literacy specialist, who joined us last year. This is our first year with the role. She administered evaluations for students in 4th grade and up. And what she found in her measure, her follow-up this fall, is about 90% of the kids that she worked with showed improvement as well. So especially in this really turbulent time educationally, I think this is absolutely wonderful that we're able to support our students in a way to maintain their growth and support that their reading levels. So I'm also pleased to share, I'm not sure if you saw the Constant Contact yesterday, we are in the process of piloting a program called RISE, Reading Intervention for Success Every Day. And so this is a new program at New Haven Reads that provides a more structured, intense approach to literacy. So brand new pilot, stay tuned for more information. We'll be happy to share as that more becomes available. In terms of our book distribution, I mentioned before, our book bank is open. We were able, with safeguards in place, to open our book bank this spring. You can visit us Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 12 to 4, and also Saturday we're open 11 to 3. So if you need a good book, feel free to stop by. But what's most remarkable is in terms of supporting the community, we also worked with incredible volunteers at meal sites at 4 schools over the summer. And since July, we have distributed over 12,000 books into the community. So not only are we supporting our students, but our book bank has really been a continued support for our New Haven Reads community through the pandemic. We are accepting donations. We get a lot of questions about that. If somebody is interested in donating books, that's done by appointment. Again, we want to ensure we have safeguards in place. So if you are interested in donating or know someone who is, we would recommend that you email books@newhavenreads.org to set up an appointment to do that, or give us a call at the main building. Technology and IT efforts. So we recognize in this time of remote learning, distance learning, Zoom meetings all the time, that technology can be a barrier. If it doesn't work, you feel pretty stuck. So I also want to credit our book bank director, Victoria Smith, and our team. They've been working tirelessly and continually on finding ways to improve technology for our students. We, in fact, received a donation of laptops late spring, early summer from an organization that we have been able to refurbish, and get out to over 36 families. We do have a few left to go out. So if we do find our students are in need, we are striving to support them in that way and getting them a laptop that they can use to log into sessions. We have another potential donation, so this effort's going to continue as long as we can. We will continue to provide our students with what they need. And then also we are working with AT&T to get mobile Wi-Fi hotspots out to students who need those as well. So I want to credit the team at New Haven Reads for their efforts. We strive every day to make it an optimal experience, both for our students as well as for our tutors, because we know you're committing your time and we want to make it as seamless as we possibly can. All right, so I think that is it for impact and updates. So our New Haven Reads distance learning tutors, and we're missing one adjective. I don't know why it's hitting. But of course, you are positive, you remain optimistic and provide a genuine, warm, welcoming space for your students. You are flexible, understanding sometimes technology may not always go our way, but you're willing to pitch in and figure it out with the support of your team and making it the best possible experience you can. And the one that's not showing up, I don't know what happened, is patient. As I said before, this is new for us, and every single day we try to make it as best as we possibly can. We don't have all the answers quite yet, but we are working to find them for you and to find them for our kids. There it is. Thank you, Natasha, you found it. I knew it was there, I had put it in. Okay, so without further ado, I could not be more thrilled to turn it over to my absolutely incredible team to walk you through the distance learning components. So Amy, our Bristol Street Site Director, will be working to cover Lexia Learning, both the Core 5 program and the Power Up program for our older kids. Janelle is going to walk you through some workbook and interventions. As I mentioned, the core test is in process now. Some of your students might be given intervention packets that might take place of the workbooks, but what are some good strategies you can employ if they have a workbook as well? Read aloud. You will be have the opportunity to meet with two incredible team members. Audra from Science Park and Mary, our literacy specialist, will walk you through strategies for read aloud and possible other options to employ. And then Carol will take you through, our Willow Street Site Director, will take you through choice time. So what's going to happen next, I'm going to turn it back over to Natasha and Julie. We are going to get everybody set up into small breakout rooms. As we move through the 4 components of the distance learning session, our site directors will change rooms, but you will remain in that same room, in that same group. So as I mentioned before, please feel free to unmute in your small groups, ask lots of questions, and more than anything, please know how grateful and appreciative I am for your time, not only this morning, but your commitment to our kids.
About Lexia, so we'll talk a little bit about how it's changed and go a little bit more in depth of some of the questions that you guys, as our amazing tutors, have asked about the program itself. So this is the first part will be kind of familiar with everybody, but we've got Lexia. This is our online component, even when we're in person. So that's maintained, which has been really nice for the transition overall. We do continue to use this program because it's research proven for its effectiveness of helping our students and students all across the country and maybe even beyond, I'm not too sure, gain and progress in their reading goals. With Lexia, it's always a two-role kind of system. We want to be, their personal cheerleader, engaging with them, cheering them on in person and online, great job, or you'll get it next time, things like that to keep them going, really. And then we also want to be an observer, taking those notes that if the Lexia level is maybe too easy, or if they could use a little extra support in a certain concept, and letting your site staff know so that they can support you with those things as well. And the way that we'll do it online is that the student will share their screen with you so that you can see, as well as their audio, which we'll get into and how to do that to make sure in case some of the students don't know how. So we have the 2 main programs in Lexia. We have the Core 5. This is designed to target our youngest learners. It goes over concepts in pre-K and 5th grade. Sorry, my cat, Bella. Okay. And then it goes up to 5th grade students. That's the target demographic. And the students progress 1 level at a time, but us site directors and site staff can manually adjust the levels So if you think it's really too easy, they're going to take a look at some of the background data and really delve into that and see if it's the best move for the student to bump them up a couple levels, maybe try some things out. They'll take a look and see what they think will work best for that student. Power Up is for our older kids. It's relatively new. It came out about a year or two ago, and it targets concepts learned in kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade, so a little bit more. It's designed to intrigue and get our 6th grade and up students more involved into it. And it, unlike Lexia going one level at a time, it has a 3-strand approach, which I'll explain a little bit more as well. But the big ones are word study, grammar, and comprehension. They each get their own level. And you'll see that in a little bit, and then you can see how they're progressing in each one. So it's really targeted to what that student needs in different areas as opposed to one level at a time. And the program will power up the students if they do really well. This is specifically for the comprehension part, which is really good to know. So if your students really master those comprehension skills, the program is going to automatically bump them up to a higher level that they think is a better fit, which is really cool and exciting for the kids. Mm-hmm. So we had some frequently asked questions that our tutors submitted. I'm going to make sure I do my best to address each one as we go through. The first one being, what is the student process for logging into Lexia and screen sharing? Really good question posed, and definitely something a lot of our kids struggle with. Sorry, my laptop was dying. So sharing with Zoom. So I just took a screen grab. Obviously that's myself. So at the bottom of the screen, you can see this green share screen button. And each device, it looks slightly different. This is generally what it'll look like. You'll share the screen, hit that button, and then a basic version of this dialog box will pop up, the one in front. And then they'll click whatever they want to screen. I have 2 monitors because I'm a big video game person, so I need to game and be on different applications. So the student may have just one, they may have other things on, but I think it's best to click on either the screen or the exact application you're trying to use. In this case, the Lexia Learning online presentation that we're doing. And then they'll hit this blue button, share. Again, because our students are logging in from different devices, it may look slightly different based on your student, but that's the overall gist of what it'll look like for your student. On tablets, it does look a little bit different. So they'll, generally speaking, go to a share content button. Again, it'll be green for the most part. They'll click on that, and then they'll hit screen, start broadcast, something like these 3 graphics. Again, it looks different on everybody's device because isn't technology great? That's the general gist of what you're going for, to share those things. And then how they log into Lexia, you'll get either to the Core 5 website or the Power Up, pull that up, and then you'll see something like this. The student will enter their username. This is for Core 5, the youngest readers, and this is for the Power Up, the older students. It's typically a 6-digit number, and then their password is usually Lexia1. At this point, it's almost all lowercase L, but it could be uppercase L. So just give it a toggle if you're not too sure. If for whatever reason a different screen pops up, it would most likely be the teacher login or enter teacher email. You're going to want to enter whoever your site director is, enter their email, and that'll get them into the New Haven City School District. We do have a couple of kids working out of district. So if you're not too sure or you see a different school district, you can always double check with either the student or the site director or assistant site director, whoever is going to know the knowledge. If they're a younger student, just go straight to the site staff though. And then if you see that they're in a different school district and they're not supposed to be, they should be in the New Haven district, or they use their what we call New Haven Reads Lexia account. All you have to do is go to this little gear down here in one of these corners. You'll click that, and then a little dialog box will pop up that will say the school district that they're in. You can hit change account, and then it'll bring you to enter teacher email, and then you can go from there. In Core 5, just going into the program itself a little bit, they specifically start up with a warm-up game. It's normally one of these. The only goal of the activity is to, refocus the student, get them working quick. It's just a beat your high score kind of thing. So it's just a fun way to get them engaged right off the bat from Lexia for the younger kids specifically.
Fast.
After they do that, it'll bring into the student dashboard and unit selections. So this is what both of the programs look like. As you can see, the one on the right half of the screen is the Core 5, and it's got a much more young aesthetic to it. It's more interactive for the younger kids, and it's just more cartoony overall. So the top one on the right-hand side is the dashboard, and then the bottom one that's a little bit bigger is the unit selection screen. Core 5 works on having 5 different units that the student will have to progress through until they complete the whole circle, and then it'll move them either to the second half of the level or to the next level. That's how that progresses. And then in Power Up on the left-hand side, you'll see there's those 3 different strands I was talking about. So the word study, grammar, comprehension. Don't mind too much about the time goals. We don't expect you guys, especially with the short duration of distance learning, to get anywhere near the full completion of their goals. Just do a little bit of it. We do ask the kids try to do their best to do more at home. But if it's ever grayed out, especially in Power Up, or you can't click on it, it just means the student has completed all of that for either the unit or the half of the level or for their weekly time goal. So your student is working on it out of New Haven Reads and they're completing their times. So that's what that means.
Amy, can I interrupt for a second, please?
Absolutely.
Back to the 3 options in the power up.
Yes.
If students continue to just choose one as opposed to the other 2, should we try to get them to do different ones, or is it a point where, like with Core 5, when they finish the circle, they couldn't do it anymore until they finish the other ones?
Eventually, they will reach an end. In theory, if they only ever chose word study, they will finish the entire program of word study before it's grayed out, or they'll have to finish their entire the weekly time requirements. If you can get them to switch to a different one, that's great. But they're essentially kind of handicapping themselves where they're just working on one thing, because eventually it will run out and they'll have to choose grammar or comprehension.
Okay. All right.
That's a really good question. Thank you, Wesley. This is the progress screen. So that last like square or rectangle on the Power Up version, it takes you to this screen. It's just cool background information. And this kind of goes into what Wesley and I were just talking about, how eventually they will run out of program just entirely for an entire strand. And this shows where the student is in the entire grand scheme of each program. So for word study here, the student is halfway through level 3. They have some fluency challenges, sentence completion, and another fluency challenge before they move to level 4. It kind of gives the older students an idea of where exactly they stand, which we like to know exactly what's going on, and as do the older kids as they get to understand more, take a more hands-on role on their education.
And the students have to access that from their account. We can't access that, right?
That's correct. So the way that you would access this is on this dashboard for Power Up. You click on the trophy icon for your progress, and then it will take you into this screen.
All right.
And then, so some more frequently asked questions that we encountered. What kind of content, or what kinds of content do the activities cover, and how do students progress? So in your handout, you're going to receive something called scope and sequence. A lot of you who have attended trainings in the past, may have seen this, but not really understood what it is. So today I'll get into that a little bit more so you can start to read it and understand. So this is something that we on the education side of using Lexia really delve into. It talks about what levels address what areas or what grade levels, at least for the United States overall. So the level 1 typically focuses on pre-K concepts, as you can see over here, and the concepts addressed in the pre-K education are rhyming, upper and lowercase, etc. And then this goes through all the way. So in kindergarten, that's addressed by levels 2 through 5, and it goes over all of these concepts. And so on and so forth. I just grabbed a portion of the scope and sequence, but it kind of gives you a more clear picture of how the Lexia program fits in the grand scheme of their overall education. There is another portion, this being specifically Core 5. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. So the Core 5 has a second portion of the scope and sequence where it goes level by level. So 1, 2, 3, and it breaks down what 5 units are addressed. So you can see it all together. So I hope that you guys take this and take a look at that later on and really can take a look and see where your students are in their education, as well as just better understand Lexia, the program itself. And then we have the same thing for the scope, Power Up scope and sequence. This is specifically from the comprehension portion, but there are 3 different scope and sequences, one for each of the strands. I hope this makes sense. It'll make sense once you look at it, I promise, a little bit more. But again, the foundational area of Power Up, it has all of these different things. So in Power Up specifically, because it's for comprehension, there are passages that go with understanding the text, because how can you understand text without the text? So for example, over here in activity 2, I say they're in level 4, building knowledge. The story that they're going to read is Tragedy at Sea. And then the other word studies look a little bit more like that core 5 word study that we just took a look at. But this kind of gives you a really big detailed overview of all of the things your students are going to work on, no matter if they're in core 5, Power Up, wherever they are in the program or which program they're using. Another question that we had asked frequently was, why can I sometimes not hear the sound in Lexia, and how can I fix this? Really big question. It happens all the time. I've done it myself too. But the short answer is you have to also share the audio. The way that a student will do this, please don't mind the screenshot I was working. I was like, let me just grab this really quick while I remember. But you'll go into the share screen button. It's right when the student first launches before you actually see anything. They'll select this button down at the bottom that says share computer sound. Just a quick note that not all devices, again, they're going to look exactly like this. I had one student who simply couldn't find the button, and it, sometimes the kids generally don't see the button, and sometimes it's not there for some reason. I don't quite know why, to be fully honest with everybody. This is what mine looks like and what others may also look like. After they select this button, it'll turn blue and you'll hit the share button in the corner, just like usual. If your student's already sharing, so say they forgot, you can go in while you're screen sharing. So this is what my desktop looks like when I'm just sharing my screen. You can go over, have the student scroll over to the 3 buttons in this over up top, scroll down to share computer sound. So it's a second option when you're already sharing your content, or the student's content. Again, it could look slightly different. I'm never too sure, but this is generally speaking what your students should be keeping an eye out on. If for whatever reason they still can't find it, especially the younger kids, they may have trouble. Don't, unless it's super pertinent to the lesson, don't stress too much about it. Sometimes I'll just have the student repeat back to me, or I try to call for a family. If nobody's around and the student really can't find it and it's cutting a lot into your session time, you can either do a different unit in Lexia and see if that kind of doesn't need you to be able to hear as well, or ask your site director if there are alternatives that they should be doing. Sometimes they'll just skip Lexia for the day until a parent can help them out. Depends on the site director and what the student's working on. And then the way that the student will be able to tell if they are sharing their audio, it'll say you are sharing your screen, and this little icon will pop up, which I didn't even know about until I was putting this all together. That's the audio portion. And then the last question, how can I best support my student in Lexia during distance learning? It was already kind of tough keeping them engaged when you were right next to them and they're in the screen. How am I going to do it through a computer to wherever they are in New Haven or the greater New Haven area? Definitely something we're still struggling with. I hope some of my tips check out, but if you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them too. At the end, we'll have questions and you guys can share, the experiences that you guys are having so that maybe we can come together and find other tips and tricks to help each other out. The biggest things that I have are talk it out with your student. Even in person, it works, but have your student read to you. Say, can you read that to me? Or how about we try it like this? Or what do you think? Try to ask them questions, try to have them work with you so that it's as engaging as possible, even through 2 screens instead of just one. That's worked really well. Some of the kids, there's a little bit more pushback than others, but overall, it generally, enough prompting and they'll start to read you the prompts or, talk it out with you, things like that. The next thing to just really keep them engaged without that frustration is something that I call the red apple of frustration. We've all heard it when the Lexia goes, let's try that again, over and over and over. And the student kind of drops down to what is called that guided instruction, where they take away one of the answers. And then if they keep having frustrations or issues, they'll drop even lower. If they do that a couple times, you'll notice this bottom apple that I've enlarged here will start to change color. When it turns red, that means that the student is in a cycle of that, or they're not having success. And that's okay. We want to give them the space to say, hey, let's take this another day. Let's try it again, because you've all seen it happen. If the student is in that cycle, there's no recovering it. They're frustrated, they're upset, they're having a tough day. So you can just back out of that unit. You could try another unit if there's time, or you can say, you know what, that's enough Lexia for today. Let's do something else. You can pull out the whiteboard. You can do some practice with the concepts they were working on. You can do, if they're really upset, you can do a quick word game that's kind of more fun. Don't worry too much, because at the end of the day, the student will come back next week with you and you'll be able to tackle it with fresh eyes. But you can't, if the student has a really frustrating session, we all know it can stick with them for the rest of the day if it's not, cut off before they get super, super upset with themselves. It's all right. They'll come back again. We'll take it a next time. So with that, those are my biggest suggestions on, paying attention to your student, as I'm sure all of you guys do, and just trying to talk it out with them as much as possible for the Lexia units. Do you guys have any questions for me? Anything you want to share out? I'll open up for people who want to say something.
Amy, how long should the session be for Lexia? I'm not sure if I missed it.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great question. Let me think. So if we have 45 minutes online, I would say maybe 15. Even that's kind of pushing it. It's really maybe one good unit in if you're trying to hit all of those other things. One thing I do want thank you, by the way, Joanna, for bringing that up, because one thing just to mention overall is if you don't get to all of the portions of the online learning model, which is very easy to do, your student comes 5-6 minutes late and you've already lost a quarter of the session, right? Don't worry about it. Get some real value out of the portions you are able to hit, and then just take a note for yourself. Okay, we didn't do a whole lot of reading. Let's start with the reading next time. Let's make sure we hit that unit for the next week. That's okay. I don't want you guys to, feel like, oh my God, I can't even talk or have a conversation with my kid. Enjoy the time you guys have. Again, you'll always come back to it next week. So if they're not able to complete a unit in 10 minutes and feel free to go in a little bit more.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. That was a great question.
Amy,
Any other questions?
I have one.
Hi,
Do
Robin.
they have any plans to extend it to an hour from 45 minutes, or are they just keeping it at the 45 minutes?
It's definitely something that we've talked about. There's a lot of pros and cons, but it's not something we've entirely ruled out. So
Okay.
That's a good question. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay.
I have a question. Do you find that most students, Lexia is not their favorite of the components?
Laura's nodding her head enthusiastically, because one of the students that we have really, overall, just as a caveat, if your student says, I don't have to do Lexia, I would check with your site staff, because that's a pretty common misconception our students seem to tell our tutors. They don't have to do it. Some, for whatever reason, or there's a deal worked out with their site staff, they genuinely don't have to do it. 9 out of 10 times the student is not just feeling Lexia that day. Don't be afraid to say, let's go ask Miss Amy or Miss Carol. Or
I'm here to talk about choice time and give you some tips and suggestions for making the most of the end of your session. And we did poll the tutors, and here are some of the questions that you've asked about choice time that I'm going to try to address in my presentation here. The first one is, what activities can I do with my student besides hangman and tic-tac-toe? And what about our older students? So next one is, what websites can we access during choice time? Is it possible to allow more? What activities can we do without the whiteboard or that allow the student to move around? And how important is choice time given the shortened session? So I hope to address these in the next slides. So what can we do during choice time? Well, we can continue to read or work if the student wants to. Homework is a huge issue with a lot of our kids, so please feel free to do homework with your student. And of course, we can always incorporate our games that I'll share with you here. I do want to mention the value of asking your student if they have homework. I had a grandmother contact me this week. She has 2 grandsons that live with her. She's having a lot of trouble getting them to finish all their homework. She's working, she's getting home, she's trying to make dinner and do everything else. So if you would ask your students, do you have homework? How are you doing in school? they can bring their homework up. You can work on it with them. Many times it's reading comprehension, writing sentences. So it does fall in line with what we're doing. And it is so appreciated by the parents and the students as well. Some of our kids, may have a little bit of math, and it's not hard math. Most of them, well, I guess if you have an older student, it might be kind of difficult, but most of our kids have just pretty basic math problems that they don't understand how to do. And if you could just show them, that would be great. And the students are allowed to share their Google Classroom screen with you. So I know we don't like them going to different websites, but this one is perfectly fine for them to do to bring up their work. So what are some of the games we can play for the younger students? So tic-tac-toe, I know that was one of the things besides, but it's really good for the younger kids. Simon Says is a lot of fun. Keep it in this range here. Touch your head, touch your nose, touch your ears. Simon said, they love that, especially our kids that need, the younger kids, they need to move and they think it's so much fun. And then scavenger hunt. One of our tutors actually started doing with his student, and I just love it. So one at a time, he'll ask them, to go find a key or find a spoon or find the remote, and they have to run and bring it back, and here it is, and he'll check off, okay, you got that, you got that, you got that. The only thing I have to say about this is just do it one item at a time, because if they're searching for a lot, they may run out of time and find themselves, out of the meeting before they're done. But this is a lot of fun for the younger kids. For the middle school, the high school students, what are some of the games you can play with them? Word games are great. So Wheel of Fortune, you write a word or phrase and hide the letters. You can be Vanna. See if the student can guess what it says by calling out the different letters. Another word game that's a lot of fun is how many words can you make from a longer word? That's always, I love that myself. I think that's so much fun. Categories. So you pick a letter and you make up a category. This is great for their thinking. They have to think of like a movie or book characters, food, places, something. Set a timer. The older kids can do the timer, or when you run out of ideas, you'll know when to switch it up. See how many things you can guess that begin with the letter that you've chosen. And then for all students, 20 questions is fun. You don't need a whiteboard. You don't need anything. They could even think of something, say, think of something and I'm going to ask you questions. And I've done this with first graders all the way up. So this is a great game for everybody. Quick thinking. This is fun. Name a category and then for 20 seconds, write down things in the category and see who can name the most. Okay, so colors and then back and forth, back and forth. You can do this orally as well. If for the younger kids that can't write so quickly, you can just go back and forth on this. Memory, snap, clap. So, and then A is for apple, B is for boot, C is for cat. They can just go back and forth through the letters of the alphabet. For the older kids, you can have a category that they have to stick to, like food, animals, something, and see if you can go back and forth on that. That's a lot of fun too. And then drawing. I have a couple of students that do drawing, like they pick something the student is interested in, like soccer or video games, and then they each draw something related to that, and then they show their drawings, and they're talking as they're drawing, which is really sweet. Hidden pictures. So Audra of the Science Park site, I just love this. She told me that she brings up a highlights hidden picture page, and with the annotate feature, tutors and students can circle the pictures that they find. So I was thinking of doing the same, just finding a few of those. I could send the link to your student. They could bring up the page and share it. And then with your annotate button, you can go in and find the pictures. That would be fun. What are some of the educational choices you could do with your student if they need them? Spelling practice. We're big on this at Willow. Love to spell with our kids. Those Explode the Code books, they fly through them, and I always say, how you doing on the spelling of those words? So we take the whiteboard, we do spelling, practice vowel combinations, diphthongs. And then this is a big thing too, words that end in ED and how they're pronounced. A lot of our ESL kids especially could really benefit from knowing how to do this. So whether they sound like id as in spotted, T as in mopped, or D as in buzzed. I love going over these with our kids. Sentence writing. So explore how a sentence might become more interesting by adding details to it, right? We want our kids not to just write like the cat ran. So be funny, be creative, make silly sentences while teaching them new words. The orange cow ate crunchy corn on the cob in the polka dotted barn with a rambunctious monkey. So you get to teach them like what rambunctious means, and it's a funny image. So they'll like that. And then story writing, I have a few students that really like to do this, and the results yield like 2 pages when we were back at the site, 2 pages of writing. So the student writes 1 line and then gives a notebook to the tutor. But in this case, you could just like say the students have the odd numbers, the tutor has the even numbers, they write 1 sentence, and then the tutor, they hold it up or read it. The tutor writes the next sentence, they write another sentence. So the story can go anywhere depending on, who's writing. And feel free to be silly with this and have fun. And like I said, the student really gets into this, and I've seen really, really great writing from this, and they enjoy it. Here are some tips and tricks for choice time, just basic things. Know your audience, know who your student is, what they're capable of. Keep it simple. It's only 5 minutes usually, so we just want something really, really simple. I like the ones where you don't really need a lot of, you don't need the whiteboard, or you can just do things back and forth with each other, which I think is good. Give them choices, have a couple of choices and let them choose. They like to pick, they like to be in charge of things like that. And utilize their whiteboard. I don't know if everyone's aware, but we've tried to give every student a whiteboard, markers, and an eraser. So at the beginning of your session, you might want to just check and make sure they have these materials with them. And you can use these during actually any time during the session if you want to practice spelling or for game time as well. Be encouraging. Everyone is always encouraging, but I always like to tell the story about I had a 4th grade boy, and his tutor said to him, "You are so smart." And he said, "Really? You think so? No one's ever told me that before." So you may not know it, but your encouragement and your supportive responses, they really lighten up a student. They don't hear it a lot. These students are struggling, so they don't hear that a lot. So it's very appreciated. And be flexible. If a game isn't working out, just switch it to something else. Not a big deal. Just switch it out or make modifications. Be creative. Feel free to make your own game. That's perfectly fine. And then teach them good sportsmanship. Don't let them win every time. It's very important for our students to learn how to win and lose gracefully. I did have a student who was terrible at losing, and I addressed it with his parents, and I said, he's not great when he loses, and they addressed it with him, and you know how important that is to learn. So it's a good lesson for them. And don't worry if you don't have time for a game. I know everybody, I read the notes and, oh, we didn't have time for a game. It's fine. It's completely fine. Some of my kids that I tutor, I'll pop into a session, or I'll have to tutor a session sometimes, and they're just so off track that when I finally get them on track, I just don't stop until the end of the session. So unless they're completely, devastated that they didn't get a game, don't worry about it. It's perfectly fine. If they say something, just make time for it in the next session. That's not a problem. And then be cognizant of the restrictions. Them going on another game website's not allowed. We just have to make sure that, we don't have any control of the ads or the pop-ups they're going to see. So of course, we're just trying to keep them safe from inappropriate topics. But if they have educational websites like Rad's Kids that they have an account on, they can certainly go into that. And then as always, screen sharing and the use of the chat box is still not allowed by the tutors. We are working on this. We all recognize the value of having you be able to share your screen and how faster things would go. So this has been a topic of a lot of our meetings, and we're trying to work out a way that where we can get this to happen. But as of right now, it's still not. But know that we've heard you and we understand, and we're working on it. And reach out to us. You know, if you don't know what to do, you don't know what to play, and the student wants to play something, just reach out. You know, we'll help you out. We'll pop in and maybe play a game with you too. So we're always happy to help. Don't ever feel like you can't call us in. So this next time here, I just want to brainstorm a little with everybody. If you have any questions or comments, love to know what's working for you that maybe I haven't mentioned, or what not to do if something really didn't work out. So I'm going to just, unmute yourself and feel free to just comment or ask a question. How many of you actually do a game with your students? Okay. Good. And for those of you that don't, there's just not time, or what seems to be?
Yeah, I find that the 45-minute session goes by really quick.
I do too. I'm shocked at how quickly they go by. Okay. And what grade is your student, Taryn?
What grade is he in? Second grade?
Second grade. Okay.
But he seems to really love Lexia, like
Oh,
the
nice.
gamification of Lexia, so he jumps right on it. So.
Oh, you're lucky. That's fantastic. Okay, great. Does anyone else have a comment or a question?
Carol, this is Wes. I was just going to add a couple of times, if the session is Lexia or Power Up and then reading, my students are engaged in the reading and they just keep right on going. I mean, it's not like they're looking for choice time. They want to continue with whatever it is they're reading. And I've just said, yep, go ahead, keep going, because there's no reason to stop. And when we only got 5 minutes left and so on. So the reading sometimes engages them, and that's almost as good as choice time.
That's beautiful when that happens, isn't it? I was reading the BFG yesterday with one of my students. I happen to have it, and she was reading it as well. So we just brought out the books and we read to each other for after Lexia, we read for the rest of the hour, the 45 minutes, and it was great. The game didn't even come into play. So yeah, that's great, Wes. I love that. Like I said, you shouldn't worry about it unless they mention it. Some of our kids really love the game, but I wouldn't worry about it if they're, unless they're working like steadily and your session goes really well and they don't need to be redirected, and they've done their reading, they've done their Lexia. Maybe you got in some workbook and you have some time, then definitely go to game. Yeah.
Carol, do you have to do choice time at the end if you find the students kind of tired or just doesn't seem engaged? Is it better maybe after 15 minutes to say, okay, we're going to do 5 minutes of whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that comes into know your student. Definitely there are some students who would work best like that, like give them a little bit of a break. I know with our kids, have attention issues, I always tell them, when we're at the site, get up, walk around, take a break, do something. Yes, absolutely, that's fine. If you can get them to redirect after, though, that's the problem sometimes, is that you can't get them back into the redirection, or they feel they've already got their game time. So, maybe I don't have to work as hard now. So, but your student, like, we trust you with that. If you can try it, if it works well, then absolutely utilize that strategy. I even used back at the Willow site, I even used the game time as, you hold it over their head, like, we need to do this or else you're not going to get game time. So, yeah, but if you want to work it in, that's right in the middle of it. That's fine. I love it. Even a couple of minutes, every 10 minutes, a couple of minutes you take out for game time is fine. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Have most of you been playing the games then, or no? I didn't. I'm going to look through again, maybe by maybe by thumbs up if you do, if you have. Yeah. All right. Well, we have 2 minutes left, so I just wanted to thank everybody. I know we're big on thank yous, but we really do appreciate it. We know that this is trying, and we want to make sure that we hang on to you and that we don't lose you to you know, little frustrations that are happening because of the computer glitches. As you heard, Haley, we're all working really hard to get better internet for these people. We just gave a computer to one of our Willow students, and her mother texted me, and it was the cutest thing. I have to show everybody. She got her can everybody see that? I'm going to stop my share. Can everybody see that? She got her computer yesterday, and her mom texted me, and she's like, she is so grateful that she has her own computer now. So we're trying our best to do that, and you know, I know, Nancy, I feel so badly about all the issues we've been having with Adriana's, you know, misconnections and everything. So we're getting her a laptop as well. So hopefully that'll work. But thank you for your patience, and we really, really appreciate it. Yeah. Well, thanks, Natasha.
You're welcome. Thank you, Carol.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. You're
Carol,
welcome.
it's Robin.
Hi, Robin.
This has been really helpful, and I'm really, really interested in the hidden pictures pages.
Okay, I'll get you some. I'll send some to Jack. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think that's a lot of fun. Yeah. All right. I think I'm going to be booted out of here in just a minute.
So my name is Janelle. I'm going to take you guys through workbooks today. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see?
Yep.
All right, good. So some of you guys may know we use workbooks to reinforce concepts that the students might be learning in school. They might be learning it with you. We use them to make sure that the student is grasping what they're being taught, and it gives us a tangible way to see how they're interpreting it. Sometimes workbooks are substituted. As Haley mentioned before, we might test your student. If your student has recently been tested and we see that they need some targeted help in an area, we might give them an intervention packet that really focuses on maybe 1 or 2 topics at most, and just drills down what they need to know. Other times your student may not have a workbook, and then we might use that time for homework or other work and written work instead. So there's a few different types of workbooks that we use at NHR. One of the most common is Explode the Code. There's 8 books in that series. There's also half books in that series to address any gaps in learning. There's Right into Reading and Jump Right into Reading. These ones take the same concepts that are explored in Explode the Code, and they dive a little deeper. There's some more time spent per lesson on each page. There's a lot more exercises. We use these a lot for English as a second language learner. Reading and Reasoning, beginning reading and reasoning, they start to introduce comprehension. Wordly Wise and writing skills kind of introduce more advanced vocabulary and really get the students thinking about writing arguments and essays or short answers. So, common sense, kind of dictates that workbooks were not designed to be used by 2 people that are miles apart. The strategies I'm going to introduce today hopefully will help that process and make it a little easier. The key here is to be patient, to be open to using new methods of instruction. And I guarantee you, combined with what I'm going to show you in this presentation, you're going to see results from your student. So the first question I'm going to address is, do all students have workbooks? And as I mentioned before, the answer is no. Some students didn't have the opportunity to pick up their workbook since we've been online. Some students have not been tested into a workbook. We have not been able to bring the pre-test online yet. So if your student wasn't tested in person, there's a chance they might not have a workbook. And then again, students lose things. You know, kids are kids and misplace things pretty easily. So they might not have their workbook, or, you know, they might not even be home and they might have forgotten to bring it with them. So if your student says they don't have a workbook, again, I would ask about intervention packets. I would ask if you have any other work that was given by New Haven Reads. You know, you say, did Miss Janelle give you anything else to work on today? And, you know, if the answer is no, then another good option is classwork and homework. Um, a lot of families feel overwhelmed with the distance learning work, and this is a good place to start and make sure that your student is still learning something in that time frame. So question number 2 is, how can I help my student during workbook when it's so difficult to see and follow along? So the key here is to take your time. Every site director understands and knows that the hour is shorter. It's only 45 minutes now. We know the workbook portion is shorter. So at most, you might even just get a page done or half a page, and we understand and we get it. One thing that's helpful is a BDA scan, which is before, during, and after. So you can have a discussion with your student before, have them hold the page up, and you guys go over it together. What's the objective of this page? What do we have to get done? How do we have to do it? What is the page asking us? And that's a good reinforcement so the student knows what they need to do and what the concept is that they're trying to learn. So you can have them pause after each exercise, take it one step at a time, and then while they're working, you can ask them, let me see how you're doing, hold it up for me. You can make corrections as needed. You can say, you know, maybe that's not quite right, you know, let's try this again. And then afterwards, when they're done, you know, you can review it and say, oh, I like what you did there, how did you arrive to this answer? um, and all of those are really giving the student a chance to verbalize what they're working on, and that helps them memorize the concepts as well. So question number 3 is, will tutors receive access to the workbook pages? And the answer I have for you is yes, if you can keep a secret. So some of our workbooks are now available online. It's a pilot for now, so only those who attend and watch the training are able to receive the link to the workbooks. Our selection is growing by the day. Most of the books are up there, thanks to some of our amazing staff. And the most important thing to note is that the workbooks should not be printed, shared, or distributed outside of New Haven Reads. Uh-oh. So the link is here. I'm going to see that it gets emailed out to you guys because the copy and pasting hasn't been working. But the workbooks are listed by title and then by lesson. You should remember to not share your screen. This is strictly for your reference. And you can put your windows side by side to see the book and the student at the same time. So I have some directions on how to put your windows side by side on Windows and as well as Mac. I don't know if anybody wants a screenshot. I've had some people screenshot before, but I'll go over it with you. So I'm going to stop my share here. So right now I'm going to share a Windows screen, and to put it side by side, and it's a demo because I'm sharing my screen, you're not going to be able to see, but it should give you a concept. So on Windows, you're going to grab this top bar and you're going to drag it to the side. And you see how it resized and got smaller? So on the other side of this window, you would see your student. And then on Mac, let me minimize this presentation. On Mac, you're going to click this little green thing. The 2 arrows should pop up. You have to hold down on it, and then it will kind of zoom out, and then you drag it to the side, and you see how it resized. So you'll have your student and the workbooks right next to you. So this is what the workbooks will look like online. Let me take you back to the first page. And you'll see they're listed here. And you can click name to sort alphabetically. So if we go into Explode the Code 7, and my student is on lesson 1, you can view it page by page. And then on this side here, you'll be able to click down if you're a little more deeper in the lesson. So another option that is available to all tutors is to pick up a physical workbook. And this is helpful if you're someone that just really needs the printed version, because like I mentioned, the online ones should not be printed at all. If you do decide to exercise this option, you are committing to return the workbook. You're committing to returning it in original condition. It shouldn't be written in or damaged because they will go back out to students at some point in the future. And then the workbook should be returned when the student completes it or at the end of the semester, whichever is earlier. Are there any questions? I'm sorry, you're low. Can you say it one more time?
Is that the same as for the packets as well as the actual workbooks?
The packets are going to be available online. We're working on getting them up. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? One thing I did forget to mention is if you're having trouble seeing the student's page, if you have, especially like Explode the Code lends itself really well to this. If you have a workbook, if you have a whiteboard, your student has a whiteboard, have them copy the exercise onto the whiteboard. So Explode the Code often has like a picture, it might be like a cat or something, you know. Have them draw the cat, and then the letters will be over here. Have them write the letters. And then whatever the exercise calls for, have them do it on the board before they write it on the paper. That way, you can see what they're doing, what they're supposed to do. They are repeating the exercise, so they have to do it twice. That helps with the retention of what they're learning. So if you're able to do that step by step, it might take a little more time, but it almost amplifies what they're doing because they've already done it 3 times. I had to write cat twice on this board, and I have to write it twice on the page. It looks like a lot of contemplation is happening.
So I have a question
Mm-hmm.
because this brought it up for me. So say your student, there's a pattern of your student saying that they don't have a workbook.
Mm-hmm.
It's beneficial just to ask the site staff if they've received one so that you know that, right?
So most students we know who did not come to pick up, we know who should have one. Some students like to pretend as if they didn't get a book because it's not their favorite section. So, you can always press the ask for help button and say, hey, Miss Janelle, I think Susie is not ready to work on workbook today. I thought she had one, but she doesn't. And then we can say, you know, I thought I gave you one and see what happens.
Gotcha.
But yes, we have a good idea of who has one and who doesn't. So any other questions? How do you feel about workbooks being online? Do you think it will be helpful? You think it will be hard to work with?
Looks like Joanne has a question. She's having issues with her microphone. So how many pages should they work on, or is there a time limit to spend on workbook activity?
It's about 10 to 15 minutes. Like I said, we expect it to be shorter. We expect to not get that much done in that time frame. So maybe about a page or two as a conservative guess. I think you'll have an easier time with older students that are able to work more independently. So you might be able to get more than that done.
And I did have a question in a training the other day from, which might be helpful for people. So she said that her student really likes to, even in person, likes to work on workbook independently.
Mhm.
And so she felt like if they were going to have to go piece by piece, like it wouldn't be quite as successful. So is there a strategy to like check in to see if they're doing it correctly? Like, do you just check maybe, 1, 3, and 5, or like what would be your strategy?
I would just break it up. I would, instead of doing every exercise, I would say maybe just before and after. If you really trust your student to be focused and actually work, I would let them work. Some people's thought process, it really requires no interruption. So if they're going to do their best work on that page without interruption, then maybe you just ask before and after.
Right.
Instead of interrupting them.
Right. And maybe have them write like one of the answers to see if they.
Yep. Maybe, yeah, just use the first one as a practice. Let's make sure we're both doing this right. And then after that, let them run with it.
And ask questions as we go along, because this is like an interactive thing as well.
All right, I'm going to share my very first Google slideshow. I just want you all to know I've never used Google Slides. I'm a PowerPoint girl. Okay.
I think they're very similar, actually.
You wouldn't think so. I got so frustrated with animations. Okay.
Oh, you did? Oh, well,
Let's
I
read
didn't know I
aloud.
never used Google Slides.
Are there other programs we can use in place of Epic? Yes, there are. The first one that I'm going to show you is Flyleaf Publishing. No account needed, completely drama-free, no logins, no passwords. And this website has all decodable text based on, different phonics and word patterns. I'm going to show you that right now. Let's just go to
So you're going to find when the books you're going to associate with this, Lexia is going to help you do that. So whatever they're working on in Lexia will be brought up in this. And you just go to free ebook library. And with our little kids, what I've done is I've had the parents type in the website and then bookmark it. And so then all I have to do is click on it. Just find the picture and click on it. So once you get into the parent actually putting it in and then bookmarking it, you're good to go forever.
All right, so now we're in the portal. We're in there. Here are all the books.
Go to student, okay. And then here.
So like Mary said, think about what skills they're working on in Lexia and then choose books based on that. So here's the blend section. A lot of people working on blends. Let's read Dot Likes to Dig.
Go Dot. One of the things I really like about this book is when you go to the end, it teaches what concepts are going to be, what words, what sight words, what decodable skills you're going to be working on. So I always go to the back of the book, and you can do that by hitting the thumbnail in the corner and picking the last 2 slides, and that'll show you the decodable skills they're working on when the pictures come up.
I know. When they finally load.
Time, and then the computer goes slow.
Oh, wait, let me close some of these. I have so many open from last time. Okay. All right, so thumbnails, because we want to go to the back of the book first so that we can check out all the words that are going to be in the book. So we've already kind of browsed them.
Before reading activities.
Free reading.
And
Okay.
yeah,
Here
you
they
can
are.
practice these words on cards, on the whiteboard that you have, on a paper. Yeah, so this gives you a lot of opportunity for practicing decoding. And you can break those up. Take your time with this. I mean, if they're not getting them, take your time so that they do get these words, and that makes a much more successful read.
All right, all right. So now you guys have gone over their target sound, the sound short I, and high frequency words. So just read through them, the words that they're going to encounter in this book. Now it's time to start reading. So then hit the thumbnail again, and then we're going to go to page, the front cover, talk about that cover. And then it just works the same way that Epic would work with the turning of the pages with the little arrow. So very, very good option if they don't have that Epic login for after 4 p.m. Okay. Second option is readworks.org. This website does require that they have an account created by site staff and login information. However, once it's saved, it's in there, they'll just, put in the class code. So let's go to that. They can create their own libraries just as they can with Epic, and also passages can be assigned to them. This is not a book website, so it's passages, so there aren't many pictures, but nevertheless, still a really good option. Okay, so I'm putting in the class code. I'm going to be Alex. All right, so now we're in. So here's his main page, assignments that I've given him. And then he has his library. When they first start, this box is going to pop up, library settings. Since he's already inside, it didn't pop up. But this is what they would use to kind of start to form their library based on their interest. And then it gives the option to start formatting. We don't want to spend a lot of time here dawdling with making it look all nice and pretty. They can do that outside of New Haven Reads Time. 45-minute session. We want to get right down to the good stuff. So once we've found something that we want to read, this is what it would look like. All right. So you see this play button right here? We're going to ignore that. We want to act like it's not there because we don't want this passage to be read to us. We want tutor and student to be reading to one another. If they're not in the mood to read that day, it's totally fine. You can read to them. They still need to hear that fluent reading. So definitely go ahead and read to them. It's totally fine. And then you can ask them comprehension questions as you go along. And sometimes there are questions that follow the passage where they type in responses. Go ahead and encourage them to answer those questions and type in responses. You guys can talk out the answers. It's a really good opportunity to work on spelling and grammar and building their vocabulary. So if that is an option, definitely have them do that. Again, so they have the option of choosing their own passage to read, or they can go based on passages that have been assigned to them by the site director. All right, so that is ReadWorks. The other option you have, and I would recommend this for 7th grade and up, is readtheory.com. Again, does require an account to be created by the staff, but a really good option that has a huge focus on comprehension. And the questions do get tough. Don't be ashamed if you answer a question wrong. It's happened to all of us. These questions get really difficult, but it is a great opportunity for growth and to just have really good, meaningful discussions with your student related to the text. A lot of the students who enjoy Read Theory, they really like having the discussions and thinking about the answers to the questions. Uh-oh, I think I'm getting frozen here. Not now. Okay. So we're logging in. They have their password, they have it. So I'm going to be this fella today. He's reading Pet Shop. All right, so we have the passage right here. You guys read through it, and then questions right on the side. So the red ones marked all the ones that I've gotten wrong, and then green, one question that I got right. I've just been guessing the whole time and hoping that I picked the wrong one, because once they choose an answer and submit it, you get immediate feedback. So if it's correct, it'll turn green. If it's incorrect, then it will give you the explanation. Some students have a tendency to just try and skip right past the explanation. No, let's read that. It's super important. You got it wrong, which is totally fine, but let's find out why it was wrong. And it will basically help them learn how to search for these answers within the text and, just sharpen their critical thinking skills, because as the passages get more difficult, some of the questions do require them to kind of, think outside the box, and it's not going to be directly in there. It's based on inferences. What do you think the author is trying to infer? Oh wait, why didn't this give us our feedback? I hit submit here. So here we go, got it incorrect, and then it's going to give us the explanation. So go over that explanation with them, because it's going to help, sharpen their critical thinking skills.
That part of it.
The passages adjust based on their scores after they've answered all the questions. So right now it's looking like if this is a 5th grade level passage, which they're not able to see which level it's on. If this is a 5th grade passage, the next passage after this would be a 4th grade passage. If he keeps getting the answers there wrong, then it'll go down to 3rd grade, and it'll just adjust that way. So we don't adjust these passages manually. The website does all of that work for us. And it does a really, really good job of it.
It does. I don't know if you noticed, Audra, but you got so many wrong. It has adjusted a lot for a lower level. That level is like on 2nd grade.
Yeah, no worries, because that student is no longer in New Haven Read, so he's not going to be upset when he logs in on Monday.
And say, "Wow, I'm down to 2nd grade."
Okay, so back to Epic outside of school hours. They need to have that parent password. There's no way around it. If the parent has not created a password with their email yet, then we can't get into it. The only thing that we can do is just keep reminding their parents to do it. I've had some parents just do it right on the spot. Like if they were right next to them, can you just hook it up right now? They can do that. But you have the other websites now. You're going to get a resource. You'll get all these websites listed in one place, so you don't have to write them down to use as options if it's not set up yet. So they would use that parent button to get in. I'm going to come out of my slideshow so that I can actually go to Epic and show you what happens when you get inside, because now we have to choose a book. All right, so we're going to go to our main page. So they've gotten in the website. The first thing that you want to do to help them choose books is look in that mailbox. So if there were books assigned to them by the site director, there would be a little red circle there with a number in it. And or often the box will just pop up and it'll have the picture of the book and it'll say, check it out. Check that book out. That's going to cut down on a lot of time searching for a book. If it's already one recommended, definitely have them go with that. All right, so we don't have any books in our mailbox. But what we can do is we can scroll down to books for student name. So here are books that are recommended to me based on things that I've already read. So it will either say books for or because you read. So they can just go right through here. Sometimes this arrow can be a little tricky and it goes too fast. If they can just move this part right here to go through it slowly, then they have better control over choosing the book. All right, so we're going to have them scroll down to books for or because you read. So that's another way that you can help them find books, or we can utilize the search bar. As soon as they click in it, then it's going to give them these different categories. We can go that route, or we're going to type in, maybe I want to read about a hat today. Once you type something in, change it up. We're not reading about cats anymore. We're going to read about hats.
Oh my God. How wonderful.
All right. So maybe we have a student who does not like chapter books. They're going to click on format. I only want to see picture books. So we filtered it that way. If we know which reading range they're in, if you're not sure, definitely call for help. Utilize that ask for help button so someone can come in and help you guys choose a book a lot quicker. The leveling system is already going to be set to Lexile. So it's going to go from the easiest to the most difficult books. BR stands for beginning reader. So BR all the way up to 235. This is a good range for the early readers, our decodable text friends. They can search within this range and then it'll just filter that way. Fiction, nonfiction is a good way to like break down and give you less books to read, so they can just filter in that respect. But if you feel like it's taking a lot of time, please call someone in. We will help you cut down on that time choosing those books. A lot of times the students they're just dawdling because, you know, the two of you may not have a monitor at the moment and they just want to waste time. Someone comes in there, they can choose a book a lot faster then. So please call for help if that's what's happening.
Yeah, definitely. And they'll do that. They've done that with me, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, or I can't click on it. Oh, yes, you can. All right, so now we've chosen books, and then as I said before, you'll get this, you'll be able to have this as a reference. So this, I use the colors as pretty much the same to guide you in the way that we were for in person. So if you were ever at one of our sites before, then you might remember the color-coded chart, pink books being the easiest, then yellow, blue, green, red, and then of course, these are going to be the more difficult books, the purple and the yellow. All right, best practices for word mispronunciation. So I'm grouping mispronunciations and deletions. So when they skip over a word, they just completely skip over it and cut it out of the sentence, or an insertion, when they add a word into the sentence that is not there. A lot of times the pops up out of nowhere in a sentence. It's not there, but they feel like it should be, so they say it. You can either address it immediately, so just stop them right there, which can be difficult sometimes with the lag between the audio, or you can wait until the end of the paragraph or the end of the page and then just have them circle back to it. Can you go back to the word ball and then show me where's that word the? They realize it's not there, reread the sentence. So you can just read it, go back and read it for them. But you definitely do want to address it. If there are a lot of mispronunciations and deletions happening on one page, that shows you that that book is too difficult for that student, for one, and maybe that's a book that you can read to them, and then they need to find one that's one level, a couple of levels below within the Lexile that they can read to you. But definitely do address it. So you can do it right then, or you can wait till the end of the paragraph or the end of the page. But we do want to point it out, it's not going to kill their confidence. Don't worry about hurting their feelings, because they need to know. That's the only way that they're going to learn. So if you just let it slide because you don't want them to feel good about their reading, it's not going to help them in the long run. So please definitely do address it.
We want our readers to be word focused. So a lot of times our students are not word focused. So that helps with that particular aspect.
All right.
Building back
talk to us
all right.
Background.
Okay. Now, if your student is freezing, I just wanted to say a little bit on this. You can do speaker view, and you can pull out a book to actually read to them. Our book bank hours are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 12 to 4, Saturday, 11 to 3. Stop by, pick out a couple books for yourself, pick out a couple of books for your student that you're tutoring, because it does happen a lot where they do get frozen, and so they can still see and hear you. So you can pull out a book, go to speaker view, look at the front and the back of the cover, the title. Oh, is there a word in there that you know about? Oh, have you ever had an itch? And then carry on the conversation with that. And then you can also do books for the younger kids that are engaging. So you might be reading to them, and reading to them is part of teaching fluency. Very, very important part. So highlight vocabulary words, key facts, and this one has the witch has an itch. The witch has an itch. Oh, where does the witch have an itch? So they could repeat that as you go along. So that helps fluency, and it's kind of like adding some theater to it. So please do bring out a book, have a book by your side, stop by our book bank library. The other thing that I've seen a lot of tutors doing is asking questions as you go along. Gee, what do we know about this story? The witch has an itch. What do we want to know? Why is that happening all the time? And what's going to happen next? Is that itch going to go away? She's still going to have it. And then at the end, of course, what did I learn? Well, the story is you learn not to be a mean witch. And if you're not mean and you're nice, then you don't have an itch anymore. So that's all, folks. So yeah, don't be afraid to pull out a book, because I know the screens do freeze, and I know that you can't share screens. So that certainly is another option. Any questions?
Yes, looks like the rooms are closed, so everyone should be here.
Great. Well, thank you guys. Let's sort of give either a reaction or a round of applause to our site staff. Thank you guys so much for walking us through each of the components. So before we say goodbye, we just have a few more things. Just want to talk a little bit about some helpful motivational strategies. So make a list. So outlining the session activities with the student at the beginning of the session. It might help students to know what to expect, to check off each activity as they accomplish it. So some of our students really like to sort of see what's going on. Keep a chart of specific goals that you and your student can achieve throughout the semester. Keep record of those completed. You and your student both can come up with goals. They could be small, they could be big, they can be full semester or just on the day. Keep score. So for games, you can keep score week to week to motivate those students who love competition. Use choice time strategically. So to motivate your students, sometimes choice time is the biggest motivator. So what this means is to let them pick the game or offer 1 extra minute of choice time in exchange for 1 more page of workbook or 1 more lesson in Lexia. So again, using choice time strategically, you know, maybe you never get to choice time, but you can always say, hey, next time, you know, you did such a good job today. Maybe next time we'll do choice time for, you know, 6 minutes instead of 5. Keeping students interested. So keeping track of what themes they're interested in. You know, if you notice that they really like space or natural disasters or animals, you know, maybe having conversations about those things, bringing up, you know, finding things on your own time to bring up to them and say, oh, in this National Geographic, I read something really cool about the planet Pluto, right? So again, knowing your student, getting to know what their interests are to keep them engaged, especially with topics in reading. Make conversation. So don't feel like you always have to do the academic portions. Have a conversation with them. How does their day? You know, what did you do in school today? Or what is your favorite ice cream flavor? Or how is summer? Or again, just getting to know your student is really a part of tutoring. It creates a bond, and it might also help you understand a little bit what's going on the outside of your student's life. Recognize small wins. So for example, last week you missed some of the punctuation, but I noticed today that you stopped at all the periods. You're really making progress. So again, just noticing those small wins and just recognizing them. Again, sometimes our students don't hear those very often. Give specific feedback. So this one I love. You're always so good at reading the bold words with emphasis. So very specific, right? Very talking about the bold words, talking about what they're doing correctly, and hopefully it will ignite them to continue those practices. All right, session management tips. So these are just some tips. It's student management, but also your sessions. So repeat and re-engage. So this is something that a lot of teachers do. I was a teacher for 15 years, an art teacher, and I always notice that using a natural, calm voice, asking the students to refocus, to repeat what I've asked them to do, right? So what did I just say? So that they understand, and then you would say, okay, awesome, let's go. The other one is getting the wiggles out. So ever so often, especially your young students, it might be good just to sort of have them stand up, wiggle it, you know, shake their hands, you know, do something for 15 seconds. I love the little dance party, you know, maybe they just want to do the floss, right? A lot of kids like to floss. So again, just getting up, moving around, taking a moment to get the wiggles out. And then also the 3 count method. So this one is, you know, if there's a behavior that you would like to stop, you can always say, I'm going to count to 3. That some students that works with, some doesn't. But again, these are all strategies that you can put in place. If the behavior doesn't stop, definitely call in the site director for some help, some backup. Taking 5. So this is a breathing exercise to calm and focus your students' attention. You can use this technique anytime. We'll talk about this in just a moment. Warm-ups. So warm-ups are, we know that Lexia has a warm-up, but say you don't do Lexia first. It could be fun for you as a tutor to come up with some really interesting, fun warm-ups for your student and you to do together. This helps the student to move into the learning frame of mind where they can effectively focus, participate, and learn. So I just want to put a reminder that we do have that ask for help button. Again, if there's a situation or you feel like you just need a little bit of backup, you're never alone in your sessions. You always have your site staff for help. Use that button. We're here to, be backup or just sort of help you move through anything that needs to happen in your sessions with your students to be successful. And then I know a lot of our site staff were saying this, so I just want to reiterate it. We completely understand online tutoring sessions length is shorter, right? It's 45 minutes, it's not an hour anymore. So please, if you feel like you can't get through all of the components of the hour or the 45 minutes, don't feel like you have to, but please do take a moment to go and do that the next time. So feel like you don't have to get through read aloud, Lexia, and workbook. You can always do Lexia the next time if you don't reach it at that moment. But we do want to try to hit each of those components if possible. I'm not really sure what happened, but we're going to try one of these. So let's practice just real fast. It's called the Take 5 method. And I've used this many times. I feel like it's successful. You can do it at the beginning of your session. You can, if your student's getting really frustrated or flustered, just take 5. And it's just breathing. So what you're going to do is put your hand out in front of you, and you're going to have the other hand. So for me, I always put my left hand out with my right hand as my pointer. And you're just going to have them trace their hand first. And you want them to focus on the feeling of the finger going up and down, all the way through all 5. And after they've done that, then you're going to add some breathing. And so you're going to start at the base of the thumb, and you're going to inhale, breathe up, and you're going to have them pause at the top or the tips of the fingers, and then exhale, breathe down.
For session notes, it's been a little bit of a transition for everyone. We really do appreciate you guys taking that extra step, learning just yet another piece of technology. And we do read all the notes. We're doing our best to respond to every question or concern in a timely manner. But if you do feel like there's something you need further guidance on, or you're a lingering question or anything, please do definitely feel free to follow up with your site staff. And please do also, I'll just reiterate, make use of that ask for help button for things that do come up in the session that we might be able to solve right then and there, like login issues, if you're having behavior challenges. Those things are important for the session notes, but if we learn about them in the moment as well, we can potentially, hopefully just resolve them on the spot, or at least know what might need to be done, in the interim, and be just better prepared for it for next time.
Mm-hmm.
But above all, thank you guys for doing your session notes.
Awesome. So to sort of finish out the training, we're just going to sort of switch the script here. And I had asked the staff to ask you guys questions. So we're going to use the annotate box again, text box. You can use stamps if you'd like. So if somebody writes something that you agree with, you can just put a stamp next to it. And we have 2 questions on each page. So I'm gonna let you guys just read them and then answer as you would like. So I see some positive, enjoyment, rewarding. I'm not sure if connection challenge is together but maybe it's connection and then challenge. Feeling disconnected. And then for the second question if you want to answer that one at the same time. Awesome. So it looks like for what's one aspect of in-person tutoring you miss that could possibly be brought into distance learning? Someone wrote the workbook. So like Janelle had mentioned, we are, again, trying our best to figure out how to get those workbooks to you. And I think we've come up with some really good solutions. Any other comments? I think we're going to go for about 5 more seconds. More conversations with students. I see some agreement, which is great. All right, we have 2 more questions. Any last comments on this one? And 3, 2, and 1. All right, let me get rid of these. So next questions are, what are your favorite and most successful choice time activities or games? And then what about the online model do you wish would carry over into the in-person, if there is anything? Riddles, someone's doing riddles with their games with the whiteboard. Word play. The 2 new reading options. Yep, that's great. Yeah, well, hopefully we'll continue to use Fly. What is it called, Audra? Flyleaf? Yeah, Flyleaf as an option. Has all those great resources. Yeah, the highlights. I think that's a great game too, the hidden figures. Awesome. All right, we'll go for about 5 more seconds. Tic-tac-toe is one of my favorite games to play. Charades too. I've been doing charades a lot. It's a fun one. All right. Well, thank you guys. Last little things here. Let me just clear these all.
I have a question.
Yes.
Having not done it this way before, I have no idea how we are keeping notes.
Right, we're doing Google Forms. So you get a link and you click the link and then you get prompted questions of how did Lexia go, how did workbook go, how did all these things go, and then there's an open-ended response at the end. And then you just hit submit and those will go directly to your site staff. So that's what we're doing in place of doing them in our folders.
Okay,
so
this will occur at the end of the session?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. We do have some materials that will be coming out to you in your email. So we'll be sending a training survey. So again, training surveys are, for me especially, are super helpful to know how we can adjust, what things were successful, what things were not. You know, at your early convenience, just sort of filling that out for us would be really helpful. We'll also be sending this video recording of the training to all who registered. And then we're going to be sending a learning resource packet. In that packet, you'll get all the links, you'll get all of the material that was needed so that you can sort of implement these strategies, new format of things, and new content in your sessions. So besides that, are there any other questions before we sign off?
Will you also be sending the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, so the whole, well, not the presentation itself, but I could. Does everybody want that? Do I get a thumbs up for, you guys would want the PowerPoint itself?
I would.
Okay.
Yes, I would also.
Okay, so I'll put that in there. So we'll do the PowerPoint. And then we'll also do our one-pager resources. And then you'll get the video as well. So if you want to go back through the video, you can.
Thank you, Natasha.
Of course, Terry. Anything else, you guys? Any other questions before we sign off? Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys for being here on this Saturday. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. And thank you for all the hard work that you guys are doing with our students. We really appreciate it. I know our kids are grateful to have you. We're grateful to have you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you.